David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, the breaking news here, 2 earthquakes hitting back-to-back, just 39 seconds apart. A magnitude 7.2 followed by a 7.5. Buildings collapsing in Venezuela, the desperate search at this hour for people trapped. And on Venezuelan TV, the children pulled out of the rubble alive. The severe storms here at home tonight, the new tornado watch is up right now. Also the stunning moment, a car explosion on the highway triggers a wildfire. The extreme heat moving across the U.S., the Midwest, then the East. Lee Goldberg has the full forecast. Tonight, the NFL star arrested and charged with felony kidnapping and armed robbery, wearing a suicide prevention vest. The tourist plunging to his death. The disturbing scene at Yosemite National Park going over a 600-foot waterfall. Just in tonight, the Luigi Mangione case, sources telling ABC News that attorneys for alleged CEO killer Luigi Mangione discussed a possible plea deal. Were they considering a guilty plea? Aaron Katersky is here. The U.S. and Iran tonight, Iran striking a ship in the Strait of Hormuz. The Supreme Court delivering 2 major wins for President Trump, allowing him to expel some migrants and to turn away others. Outside New York City tonight, the driver wanted for a deadly hit and run. The surveillance showing 2 women struck and killed while crossing the street after watching the World Cup. Tonight, the image and now the suspension. The WNBA player appearing to thrust her fist into Caitlin Clark's neck. Lionel Richie's health scare, the opening night of his new tour. What he told the audience, then leaving the stage. Tonight, Dolly Parton's surprise appearance amid her health woes and what she's now done. Tonight, the World Cup showdown. Will the U.S. men's team make history? Tonight, tennis great Chris Evert revealing a deeply personal development. And we remember the lead singer tonight of Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the horrific images now coming in after devastating back-to-back earthquakes in Venezuela. The magnitude 7.2 and magnitude 7.5 quakes just 39 seconds apart, and they have been deadly. Dramatic video tonight showing the moment the earthquake struck, buildings collapsing into clouds of dust and debris. Tonight, the death toll climbing. The quakes bringing down the ceiling at an airport just north of Caracas. Travelers running for their lives with the terminal coming down around them. Search and rescue teams working around the clock, digging for survivors. Thousands of people still missing at this hour. Tonight, dozens of aftershocks now reported, and you will see the moment on Venezuelan TV showing children being pulled from the rubble alive. ABC's Victor Oquendo leading us off tonight.
This is the terrifying moment 2 massive back-to-back earthquakes struck Venezuela. The strongest to hit the country in a century. A magnitude 7.2 followed 39 seconds later by an even stronger 7.5. Buildings collapsing as panicked residents race for cover. Officials say at least 250 buildings have been damaged. This survivor saying it was like a horror movie. You can hear the fear from passengers on this plane on the tarmac in Caracas. Sections of the airport crumbling into a cloud of dust as travelers scramble to escape. Tonight, there is a desperate race to find survivors underneath mountains of concrete and twisted metal. Rescuers pulling this woman from the debris. She says she held on to her door frame during the quake and watched her friend disappear. Venezuelan TV showing 3 children covered in dust pulled out alive from the rubble. At least 188 people have died and hundreds more are believed to be trapped. Earthquake experts warn the death toll could top 10,000. As families frantically search by flashlight for their loved ones. At least 25,000 are still unaccounted for. American tourist Jason Wang made it out alive. He was about to get into a cable car when the quake struck.
It started to shake, and then I felt the ground shaking a little bit, and then just mass panic. Like everyone was just bolting the door.
Tonight, so many in need. Patients evacuated from a damaged hospital lined up on the street.
There's absolutely going to be big aftershocks. You never get an earthquake this big without many aftershocks.
With its battered infrastructure, Venezuela was already facing a national crisis, making this emergency response even tougher for acting President Delcy Rodriguez. It comes just months after the U.S. raid removed President Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. military and State Department now sending support. And international search teams are now on the way, including this team from LA County Fire Department. In Miami, volunteers with the Global Empowerment Mission are packing up relief supplies.
Venezuela was already in pretty bad shape before the earthquakes.
Yes,
so what does this do to it now?
I'm trying to help whatever with medicines, with canned food, whatever that they needed.
David, we're inside this Venezuelan restaurant called El Arepaso in Doral. They are accepting donations 24/7. You see them stacked up high here behind me. Also tonight, the U.S. State Department saying it would provide $150 million to aid groups in Venezuela. David?
Well, they're really going to need it. Just extraordinary pictures tonight. Victor Oquendo leading us off on the earthquakes in Venezuela. Meantime, back here at home tonight, the severe storms we're watching right now. In fact, there are new tornado watches up across multiple states at this hour. Flood watches across the Midwest, heavy rain, damaging winds, large hail from Texas all the way up to the Northeast. Then the extreme heat moving into the Midwest and then the East. It's expected to last for days. Senior meteorologist Lee Goldberg with the images tonight and the full forecast.
Tonight, new video showing ferocious winds tearing through the Chicago area, causing major damage.
It got real strong, it got real scary, and it looked like you're in a tornado, and then we ran in the basement.
60-mile-per-hour gusts in the last 24 hours, snapping massive trees, sending them crashing down onto homes and cars and knocking out power.
Right when the wind gust came, we saw a branch fall down, and then shortly after that, the entire tree kind of came with it.
At Kansas City Stadium this afternoon, the site of a World Cup match tonight, an urgent warning to seek shelter as storms move through. Hail covering the ground like snow in Green Bay, Wisconsin Wednesday.
This is insane, man.
Heavy rain turning streets into rivers. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, firefighters using a ladder and ropes to rescue a man trapped in a flood-controlled ditch surrounded by raging rapids. In the West, an RV on fire, exploding, sparking a wildfire in bone-dry conditions in Maricopa County, Arizona. While in Utah, the Cottonwood fire now scorching more than 110 square miles, burning out of control with extreme fire conditions in the hours ahead.
This is likely the most destructive and costly fire in terms of property damage that the state has ever seen.
And in Europe, the death toll rising from that heat wave. Iconic tourist landmarks like the Louvre and Eiffel Tower forced to close early.
The weather extremes tonight here in the U.S. and across Europe. Lee Goldberg back with us tonight with the full forecast for us. Hi, Lee.
David, we're looking at severe weather from the heartland all the way to the Ohio Valley. Tornado warnings eastern Ohio and in eastern Oklahoma. Tornado watches go from Oklahoma and Kansas, and severe thunderstorms Wyoming to the Texas Panhandle. We're also concerned about flash flooding from the Ohio Valley, and that rain goes into the northeast both Friday morning and Saturday morning. In the west, the rare extremely critical fire danger, Utah, Nevada, Arizona into Friday. That lasts into the weekend. The heat, it goes into the Midwest this weekend, into the east, into next week, feeling like 100 or higher. David?
Summer is here. Lee Goldberg back with us tonight. Lee, we appreciate it. We turn next tonight to the NFL star arrested and charged with felony kidnapping and armed robbery. The Detroit Lions' Terrion Arnold in court wearing a suicide prevention vest. He's accused of targeting 3 victims. And here's ABC's Morgan Norwood now.
Tonight, Detroit Lions cornerback Terrion Arnold appearing in court, accused of orchestrating a robbery and kidnapping plot. Arnold wearing what appears to be a suicide prevention smock, overnight turning himself in to authorities in Tampa, Florida. On February 4th, prosecutors allege Arnold directed a group to lure 3 men to an apartment where the victims were robbed, beaten, and held at gunpoint, saying Arnold believed the men had stolen more than $200,000 worth of his personal items during a stay in his Airbnb property. But investigators say they later found no evidence to prove the victims were involved in the theft, and that Arnold reported his property missing just hours before the alleged attack. The state attorney's office saying no one has the right to take the law into their own hands. A dispute over missing property does not justify kidnapping, violence, or retaliation. A spokesperson for Arnold stating the cornerback denies any involvement and maintains his innocence. Arnold Arnold was drafted by the Lions in 2024. Tonight, the team saying they are aware of the legal situation and declining to comment out of respect for the ongoing legal process. Police had previously arrested 6 other people who were allegedly involved. 2 of them have since pleaded guilty.
And David Arnold is being held tonight without bond. If convicted, he faces up to life in prison. David?
Morgan Norwood tonight. Morgan, thank you. Tonight, the disturbing scene at Yosemite National Park, the tourist plunging to his death, going over a 600-foot waterfall. Here's ABC's Alyssa Adan tonight.
Tonight, this is the last known image of a 22-year-old man who authorities say tragically fell nearly 600 feet to his death over Nevada Fall in Yosemite National Park. Freja Gall had been hiking around the falls with friends, taking this image moments before. The man in the hat seen keeping his head above water. The National Park Service identifying him as Josue Baites Alfaro.
I knew based off of the ripples in the water, there was going to be a massive undercurrent. He didn't look like a strong swimmer.
Gall, who has lifeguarding experience, says she jumped in and tried to save the man.
I launched over toward him, and quickly the undercurrent, that washing machine, basically slams him under. And suddenly I can't spot him anymore. And in that shock, this meant that I got caught up in it too.
Gall fighting against the strong undercurrent, saying she was left bruised by the rocks and feared she would die. Eventually able to get herself out, but the man she was trying to save was pulled over the falls. Yosemite search and rescue personnel responded to the scene and conducted search and recovery operations below Nevada Fall. His body was recovered the next day.
David, it's unclear how the man wound up in the water before he was pulled over. The National Park Service is investigating. David?
All right, Melissa Adan. Melissa, thank you. Just in tonight news in the Luigi Mangione case, sources telling ABC News that attorneys for the alleged CEO killer discussed a possible plea deal. Were they considering a guilty plea? Let's get right to our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky. Aaron, what do we know?
David, sources tell ABC News attorneys for Luigi Mangione and federal prosecutors had been in talks for a possible plea deal in which Mangione would admit to killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. It's not clear how far they got, but we're told the negotiations have now stopped. Mangione has pleaded not guilty to stalking and murdering Thompson in December 2024. He could still change his plea before, even during trial. Mangione's lawyer declined to comment, but David, she did accuse prosecutors of trying to manipulate public opinion and violate Mangione's rights to a fair trial. David?
Aaron Katersky with us tonight. Aaron, thank you. We move on now to the U.S. and Iran tonight. Iran striking a ship in the Strait of Hormuz. It comes just hours after President Trump said the deal with Iran was going well. Here's John Carl.
Less than 24 hours after President Trump declared that the deal with Iran was going well.
Iran is being very nice. They're agreeing to everything that I want.
Today, U.S. officials tell ABC News Iran attacked a cargo ship attempting to cross the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has imposed new conditions forbidding ships from traveling outside of its approved shipping lanes. Maritime security expert Martin Kelly posted audio of a warning he says the Iranian military is issuing to ships attempting to cross the strait.
If any vessel attempts to transit in the strait without our permission, it's responsible for any consequences of any danger.
Just this morning, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that if Iran interferes with shipping traffic, it would be a clear violation of the deal that President Trump signed last week.
If ships are moving as they should be moving, then that's what we're going to judge and that's what we're going to react to. If, on the other hand, this rhetoric is backed up by actual ships being threatened and ships are not moving, that's a violation of the agreement and we're going to have a problem with it.
Traffic through the strait had been increasing, reaching nearly the level it was before the war. But this attack, coupled with new warnings from the Iranians, is expected to reverse that progress. David?
John Carl live at the White House for us. Thank you, John. Tonight, the Supreme Court delivering 2 major wins for President Trump, allowing him to expel some migrants and turn away others. Let's get right to Mary Bruce on the Supreme Court. Mary, what have we learned?
Well, David, tonight the Supreme Court's conservative supermajority handing President Trump 2 wins on immigration in a 6-3 decision. The court clearing the way for Trump to cancel the temporary protected status of hundreds of thousands of Haitians and Syrians who've been living and working legally in the U.S. Most will now need to leave the country or face deportation. In the other case, the justice is allowing the administration to turn away people seeking asylum at official ports of entry along the U.S. Mexico border, meaning the U.S. can essentially shut the door door to migrants fleeing violence and persecution. And David, we are still waiting on perhaps the biggest immigration decision, the court's decision on whether Trump's effort to end birthright citizenship is unconstitutional. David.
Mary Bruce, who's reporting here in New York with us tonight. Mary, thank you. Tonight, we're remembering someone close to many of us here at ABC News. We learned today that a husband and father in Ukraine, Maksym Oseredchuk, has died. He was killed during a Russian drone strike last night while serving in the Ukrainian army. He was a friend and colleague to those of us who reported in Ukraine. He drove many of us around the country into the front lines, keeping all of us safe. He always had a smile. Our Ian Pamela remembering his quick wit tonight, calling him one of life's genuinely lovely people. He was drafted into the military several months ago. At the time, he said, quote, "If this is what fate has brought, I will defend my country and my daughter." All of us who worked with Max are thinking of him, his wife Katerina, and their baby daughter Maria. Max was just 30 years old, and he often joked that none of us could get his name right, so I hope I did well by him tonight. When we come back on the broadcast, outside New York City tonight, the driver wanted for a deadly hit-and-run surveillance showing two women struck and killed after watching a World Cup match. More on this in just a moment here. Also, the image tonight and the suspension. The WNBA player suspended, appearing to thrust her fist into Caitlin Clark's neck. Also, what we're learning about Lionel Richie's health scare, the opening night of his new tour, what he told the audience, then leaving the stage and not coming back. And tonight, Dolly Parton's surprise appearance amid her health woes, what she has announced today. We love seeing her. We'll be right back. Tonight, the suspect in a deadly hit-and-run accident caught on camera in Newark, New Jersey, has now turned himself in. Video showing two women crossing the street after a World Cup watch party Saturday night when a car slams into them, sending them into the air. Neither survived this. 3 days later, David Zapata coming forward. He's now facing charges tonight, including 2 counts of vehicular homicide. Tonight, the WNBA suspending Mercury's Alyssa Thomas for 1 game for putting a fist in Caitlin Clark's neck during last night's game. Clark with the ball in the second quarter, falling to the ground, but then tossing the ball to a teammate. The replay showed while Clark was down, Thomas drove her knee into Clark's thigh and then pressed her fist into Clark's neck. The refs didn't call it, but tonight the WNBA has imposed the suspension. When we come back on the broadcast tonight, Lionel Richie's health scare on stage last night, what he said to the audience before leaving and not coming back, and tennis great Chris Evert revealing deeply personal news tonight in a moment here. To the index of other news tonight, a health scare for Lionel Richie, cutting short the opening night performance of his tour in St. Paul, Minnesota last night. The 77-year-old singer sat down during one number, telling the audience, when you're feeling dizzy, sit your you-know-what down. So he sat at the piano for another song before calling an intermission. He didn't come back. There's no official word tonight on how he's doing. Of course, we hope he's feeling better. David Clayton-Thomas, the lead singer of the group Blood, Sweat and Tears, is being remembered tonight.
What goes up must come down.
Singing Spinning Wheel right there, one of many songs he wrote. They sold millions of records and won 2 Grammys, Best Album in 1969. Clayton-Thomas was 84. Tonight, tennis legend Chris Evert sharing the news that her cancer has returned, canceling her announcing appearance at Wimbledon next week. Evert posting on Instagram that scans over the weekend confirmed the ovarian cancer she has already undergone surgery for. She will begin chemotherapy. She was scheduled to work as an analyst. Evert was first diagnosed back in 2022, announcing the following year that she was cancer-free. We are all thinking about Chris tonight. And Dolly Parton making a rare public appearance as she deals with her health challenges, making a surprise stop at the grand opening of her new business venture, yet another one, Dolly's Tennessean travel stop, inspired by her decades on the road herself. The roadside truck stop features gas, food, a laundromat, showers, and all sorts of Dolly swag, of course. Great to see Dolly out and about. When we come back tonight, American fans tonight, will the men's team make history? We'll go there in a moment.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by the Farmer's Dog.
Finally tonight, of course, the World Cup. Will the men's team make history tonight? Trevor Ault at the stadium.
Tonight, American fans are in a fervor.
We're so excited to cheer for USA!
The U.S. men's team on the brink of making history, looking to win 3 straight World Cup matches for the first time ever.
I want them to make it through winning all 3 of the group.
Tonight in Los Angeles, they're taking on Turkey, and their star forward Christian Pulisic should be ready to join them on the pitch. He missed last week's match with a calf injury, but says he'll be available tonight. And the Americans have already punched their ticket to the knockout round of 32, thanks to dominant wins against Paraguay and Australia. Fans outside the stadium tell us the World Cup matches have been electric, and they think this could be America's year.
They've done the country proud, and they've done themselves proud.
You think they got what it takes to go all the way?
Absolutely.
And David, the American men will play that next round knockout match Wednesday in Santa Clara, but right now they are fully focused on Turkey and potentially making history here tonight. David.
All right, you got to get inside and cheer them on for us. Thanks, Trevor Alt from California tonight. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow. From all of us here at ABC News, have a good evening. Good night.
David Muir, the most trusted, most watched newscast in America. And now, World News Tonight has won the Emmy for Best Live News Program for the 4th year in a row.